Sandy, in its overview, was one of the largest disasters the American Red Cross had responded to.
When we drove in, it looked like a disaster. All of their possessions from their homes were sitting by the curb.
When we're talking water, we're talking 3 to 6 feet of water inundating communities. And by the time we got there, most of the water had gone, but you could still see the devastation.
13 states were affected. Millions of people, millions of power outages, and I believe, I know that the total damage in New York was about $41 billion, and in New Jersey, I think $36 billion.
It wasn't until we took the trip to Staten Island that we realized how huge of a disaster it was. So we found a local volunteer from the local chapter, and he said, go up to Sand Road, that's where it came through. I said, just park anywhere on Sand Road, and he said, yeah. So we did.
The people we worked with mostly were those who had lost their homes completely, and even some family members.
We see a lot of the physical damage on the news, and that's what people think of, but there's a whole emotional side to this whole process as well. People, young and old both, lose many times everything, from the youngest child who loses their teddy bear or their blankie, to the elderly couple who have lived a lifetime in a single house maybe. And along with all their physical possessions, they've lost a lot of their memories that have been stored in scrapbooks, videos, slides, memories of a whole lifetime.
You have to let them know that you are there for them, and you have to put your emotions aside and be the rock that they're looking for.
The hardest part for me was we were handing out these meals. Cliff and the other people were working very hard in the truck, making them as fast as they could. And there was a gentleman on the other side of the street. There were 2 lanes of traffic between us and him, and he was older. He kind of reminded me of my dad. And he was rolling up the street in one of those little motorized wheelchairs. And he looked over at me with this haunted look that I will never forget. So I got a meal and 2 bottles of water, and I took them across the street to him. And he said, thank you, and God bless you. And as he rolled up the street, he started crying, and the tears were rolling down his face. And I just about lost it right then, but I held it together because we were still there for another 2 hours. And there were, he wasn't the only one, but he was the one that affected me the most.
My story from Staten Island is a little different than Lynn's, in that we were just briefly there serving meals to people who were in pretty bad shape. And it wasn't long after we were there that there was a knock on the door. And one of the residents came up and said, would you like some coffee? And I was just amazed. I said, well, yeah. She said, I'm sorry, it's going to be decaf and instant. And I said, that is so wonderful. And she brought us some hot coffee.
But there's some defining moment in every day and on every deployment where you think, okay, this is why I was here. For me, it was the old man in the wheelchair. I knew I was the one to be there to give him that meal that day. It could have been somebody else, but I knew that was the reason I was there.
They were also, the thing that amazed me, they did not have power. Much of the place did not have power. Someone came in and said the street lights were on, and the people cheered. Their houses had 6 feet of water previous to that. The whole operation, I think nobody understands, except the Red Cross maybe, what a difficult situation responding to an emergency can be. You have thousands of people called and being organized and working together on a moment's notice. And amazingly, out of all that chaos, it happens.
I learned that none of us are exempt, and disasters don't play favorites. People trust the Red Cross, and that was a great responsibility to feel, and it made all of us rise to the occasion and try and do what we could to contribute.
I think in the course of 2 weeks there serving food, we received more "God bless yous," "Thank you for being here," "What would we do without the Red Cross?" That's the payoff for the whole thing.
I'm just a reflection of many of the other volunteers that do this 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. Whenever there's a need, we're there, and we're there until the need is over.
Estoy muy agradecida por ser voluntaria con la Cruz Roja Americana.